Hey, you folks, I'm Alan. Today is Saturday, April 11, 2026, 9:17 in the PM, Davao, Philippines. This is a more technical video. If you're not someone who's in the software QA space or software development, you are probably not going to enjoy this video very much. But feel free to give it a watch if you're curious. If you know me, welcome back. If you don't, settle in. I'm not sure how long this video is going to go. So, what in the hell is SQA? What is software QA? Uh, I've been asked about this a lot over the years, and I have tried a bunch of different answers. And I feel like some of them hit and some of them don't, and it really depends on the person who's asking. Software QA in a nutshell is a person, persons, or process that tests software, an application or a website, mobile application, and they check it bumper to bumper. They test for features, functionality, and so on before that software or that software update gets rolled out to the public. Think of it kind of like an editor or a proofreader for a book or an article. The person who wrote it can look at that article 100 times and they're still going to miss errors. So before they publish it, they have someone read through it and look for the errors. Software QA is kind of like that, but more, because we're testing things like functionality. If you think about it, like how complicated a login form can be, it can start getting complicated very, very quickly when you start considering, will that login button let me button mash it several times? And if so, what will it do? What kind of values can I enter into the username password? What kind of errors does it throw? What am I seeing in the console and in the network as I'm doing these things? Will it lock me out? You know, if I'm hitting that login form real fast, will it detect a bot? Should it? Or will it invoke some kind of CAPTCHA maybe? That's just a login form, and it's like one of the first basic things that you really start hitting in software QA, along with just button clicking and link clicking to make sure that things go where they're supposed to go. So that's software QA kind of in a nutshell. There's a lot I'm skipping, like test planning and test cases and how to write a bug and so on and so forth. And I can drill into that more if folks are real curious. Just drop a comment and I'll give you more details. But principally what I want to talk about right now is how software QA, what role it plays in this world where we have AI happening. And you may rightfully be asking, well, who in the hell is this guy to talk about software QA? All right, fair question. I have been testing software and breaking shit since 2006. I started off in manual black box testing, taught myself how to write code, and then I taught myself how to implement automation testing. I've done it for desktop, I've done it for mobile, I've done it using Java, Kotlin, Swift, JavaScript. I've been around the block for software QA testing. In addition to black box, of course, gray box, white box. I've hit APIs, I've done integration testing. I've even put in some time grinding away at unit testing. I think the only kind of testing I haven't really hit very much of is load and performance testing. And even then, I've done a little bit of it, but it's been using third-party tools. So let's just say I've done this for a while and I have the resume to back it up. So what I currently see is the AI hype is the volume on it is so loud that I feel like it's all anybody anybody can hear. There's this idea that AI is going to take everybody's job, and this is just nonsense. I also hear that coding is dead. And what I've observed, unfortunately, is that it seems that the worst of the crypto bros have jumped into AI. And that's deeply unfortunate because AI as a tool can be useful just so long as we remember that it's a statistical model. All right. I'm drawing a parabolic or a curve and I'm just making shapes with my hands here. Anyways, sorry, I talk with my hands a lot, folks. So, where was I? Oh, what did I see? I see, just about anybody making an app, which is cool. Horsing around with AI gets me really interested or re-interested in just going back over the basics with like React and with CSS to see what I can make. The problem is that a lot of folks who are just using AI to generate code, they're not thinking about things like security or scalability. For those who aren't sure what those things are, I think pretty much everybody can get a handle on the basics of security. If you've got a login set up, some kind of authentication wall, then someone shouldn't be able to get past that wall without proper authentication. Scalability is a slightly bigger concept. That idea is that, sure, the thing you're using may work great on one computer or 10 computers, maybe even 50 computers. But what happens when you kick that out to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, millions of users? That's what we're talking about when we talk about scalability. And also time. Sure, maintaining the app is easy for a day, a month, 6 months. But what happens when you're 3 years into maintaining this website or this application and you've got, 100 different versions behind you and you have to support legacy functionality throughout those versions for folks who are using different older models or older versions. I think the best example is probably mobile applications. But there are others out there where you may be dealing with a version of that app and you think, well, crud, is this going to work on the newest iOS or Android? How do I make it work on the newest iOS version or Android version? And how many versions back of my app am I going to continue to support? Now, you have a human intelligence looking at this, and they're going to start making some decisions for better or for worse, and hopefully guided by experience in order to groom out the functionality that is no longer useful for the app and to start setting up and implementing the things, the dependencies that are needed to support future functionality. And if you're just going with AI, you are going to run into problems with how that app or that website scales, either via users or over time. Now, and okay, there's reading off my bullet points here. The other thing that I see is a lot of OSS repos, a lot of open source software repos have just blocked AI-generated pull requests. For folks who don't know, think of a pull request as an edit. Like imagine you're dealing with a Google Doc and you have hundreds of people throwing edits up to that doc. In coding, a PR is an edit and approve process where someone submits an edit and then you review it. And if it looks good, then you approve. And then it gets merged in. That edit gets merged into the document. That is essentially a pull request, along with lots of options for adding comments, making suggestions, telling someone, hey, this edit isn't going to quite fall in line with what we have working on here. Please update it in these ways, so on and so forth. So these AI-generated PRs, some of them are useful, but The OSS repos are getting spammed by so much AI generated PRs that they've just blocked them, because they might get the answer 70% right, maybe even 80% right. But then they make some tactical and strategic errors. And the trouble with that, and anyone who's had to debug code knows this, is you can get it 70, 80% of the way there. And that's only 20% of the effort. That last bit, that's like 80% of the work, because you are debugging things, you are hitting edge cases. And that's where you really start running down like runtime errors, for example. And some of these can be extremely subtle and difficult to track down. And if you're dealing with code where you're not sure how it got created, what data structures were used, what assumptions were in place when that code was created, this makes debugging really hard. Honestly, the easiest time any programmer, anybody in development, the easiest time they're going to have with debugging code is while they're developing it. Like while you still have that contextual framework in mind for what you're trying to do. That's the best time, that's the easiest time you're going to have debugging code. And that's only in that moment, in that time. Because I've written code and then I've come back to it a month later. I'm like, what idiot wrote this? What is this garbage? I'm like, oh, the call is coming from inside the house, Alan. That's me. I am the entire problem. Reading code is harder than writing code is. All right. And debugging code is part of reading code. So when the AI has generated that code for you, like right out of the gate, unless you are dealing with some kind of hybrid collaboration where you and the AI are working together to implement this code, all right, you are essentially reading someone else's code with only high-level context. This makes debugging a lot harder, and it really, really increases the chances that you're going to miss something. Now, all that being said, I am aware of the latest Anthropic model called Mythos. And that's a serious step up. For those who don't know, Anthropic has created a new model called Mythos. Don't bother looking for it. If you had access to it, you would already know, because it is not being published or shared to the public. There's just a handful of companies and folks who have access to Mythos, and that's because it has shown an ability to successfully detect exploits on operating systems, banking systems, applications, repos, software that's been around for over 2 decades. It's finding like severe exploits. So Anthropic's doing the right thing, and they've contacted these companies privately, showed them their results, showed them how they got them, and they're giving them a chance to fix the problems before Mythos gets released. Because if they just release it out, the script kiddies and AI kiddies are going to be going wild with Mythos, trying to break into things. And I mean, even once Mythos gets out, that's still going to be happening. So I'm not saying AI is garbage. It's a tool. It's a very, very smart tool. But without a human hand, you're going to start running into problems. Now, what I've experienced in the QA space, I'm not worried about software QA going away. I'm just not. We've been dealing with news and notification and articles about how record and play tools is going to be making automation coding obsolete, yesterday. And man, that's been happening for years. Uh, AI is just another layer of that. It helps with things. I mean, I have used record and play tools in like Swift in Xcode to try to get at UI element IDs. And I had to imagine that AI is going to make things like that easier. Like I can tell it, hey, scrape this site, give me the element IDs. I'm looking for these things. Or, show me a quick fix to implement a data test ID for this element in a way that works within the current source code. Okay, that would be great. That would save me some time. But is it going to replace QA automation? It's highly unlikely. It'll make some things easier. But at the end of the day, QA is about making sure that the UI and the UX works for humans. If you have an AI testing a UI and a UX to see if it works for humans, you, sir, madam, or in between, are going to run into some problems. You just are. If you have the AI checking, oh, okay, is this interface or is this JSON, is this API response, is this sufficient or is it optimized for another AI? AI can probably do that better than I can. Chances are real good AI can do that better than I can. But parsing a site or an app for usability for a human, at the end of the day, you're going to have a human doing that and making human decisions. So, and I'm certain you folks have heard this elsewhere. To me, some hybrid version of this collaboration is still the most effective way forward. And I say this as somebody where the company I work at right now is a UI toolkit. It helps generate SaaS and apps and websites. And we use AI. We use AI to help build out boilerplate projects, layouts. I've interacted with lots of Claude and Gemini MD files. I am familiar with tools and skills and so on and so forth. And again, AI does an impressive job of getting certain tools right. But at the end of the day, it requires that human hand to give it some guidance, especially where in areas where it has to interact with a human. All right. What do I think is going to happen moving forward? Generalists are going to become more in demand than specialists. Now, you see this most pointedly with the security issues that Mythos is finding, because security is a very difficult part of the software profession, because you can't be great at everything. You just can't. And so very often, software professionals specialize. And in security, this is especially true. You will have people who are really good at hardware security who aren't necessarily very good at browser security, right? They're really good at understanding how security works and what kind of things cause a vulnerability. But what that looks like in a browser versus what that looks like in hardware, two very, very different things. Okay, we'll enter AI. So here, let's say you've got a security professional who's very good at security and exploits, understands Stack Overflows and so on. But he doesn't know very much about browsers. The AI does. So the AI is able to offer some very specialist perspective, a very specialist perspective into the context, into the collaboration that you otherwise wouldn't have. So I see specialization as being less useful to folks, for better or for worse. Programming and software development are going to continue to be in demand. I know that we see lots of layoffs, and I know I'm going to get pushback for this. But AI is just a cover for the economy being in the dirt, being in the dumpster, man. Like that's really it. That there are some actual authentic job losses due to AI. For example, you see that with Tailwind, right? Where most of their money generated, most of their income was from access to help documents and resources for using Tailwind. And with AI, it can just generate that for you and give you some helpful feedback. So, are there genuinely job losses due to AI? Yes. But when I'm seeing thousands or tens of thousands of people laid off and people are saying, oh, it's AI, no. No. Companies overhired during COVID. There was an enormous push to learn programming. All right. And now we are in a hiring freeze. Now, I'm not sure what other industries look like, but I know in software development, we are essentially in a hiring freeze. Um, we are in a moment of extreme uncertainty. And as I've said in past videos, uncertainty is expensive. And unfortunately, the people who are paying for that are employees, developers, individual contributors in working in the software industry. We are paying that price, and that's deeply unfortunate because companies get government bailouts, but not people. My best recommendation, and I have to think about this a bit, I have to choose my words a bit here, is to keep upskilling. And I know that's going to frustrate people, but you keep upskilling, keep learning. I wouldn't tell anyone to don't learn programming or stop learning programming. But I would say keep learning. For myself, I'm going to be diving more into back end development. I've been banging around in software QA for so damn long, but there are areas where I still have weaknesses and gaps, and back end development's one of them. So I'm probably going to be jumping into coursework for that, just start getting my head around it. The last the last thing that really comes to mind, and I don't see enough people talking about this, is the problem with licensing. One of the big reasons why I think we're going to continue to see, how does Primogen put it, artisanal, handcrafted code. The reason I think that's going to continue to be the case is because, and this is the important part if you're still watching the video here, all right, AI generated content and code has no right to authorship or ownership or licensing. None. Okay? None. So unless the entire software industry around the world decides that it suddenly wants to be open source, and this is not going to happen. But unless that's true, there's simply no way that coding is going to be entirely turned over to AI, because that literally means that no one has a right to their code. No one can license their code. No one can charge fees for their code. No one. Now, what do you think the chances are of that happening? There's just too much money has been made. So bare minimum, not only will people be involved in writing code, what it will likely look like is some kind of hybrid collaboration between a person and the AI. Anyway, this video went on longer than I thought it was going to, kind of. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, drop them down below. I try to be good about replying to comments. If you liked what you heard, or if you didn't, hit the right button. Do me a solid, hit the subscribe. I hear it helps. Beyond that, as always, take care, be good to yourselves, and stay safe out there. The world's a crazy place. Till next time, folks.